What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Euro Picks and Bets. I am Bryan Decorte, also known as Axis, filling in for Skylar as he's enjoying a little bit of vacation, and I am joined by Tom Jacobs to talk some Scottish Open. What's going on, Tom?
Yeah, I'm good, Brian. Nice to have you on. I was going to say that actually Skylar has been given a gig caddying for Guido Migliozzi, but he is actually really just on vacation,
I'd be
and
super jealous.
we do not want to panic viewers that he has gone for a long time. But I also want guys to realise that Brian, you talk with Sky an awful lot about the European Tour in your own podcast and share a lot of data with him as well. So very able to step in and pick up the show.
Yeah, it should be a really fun week. This is one of the best stretches of the European Tour, obviously, with the Open coming up next week, coming off of the Irish Open. So, yeah, I don't know. I love this event. And I know, it's played at the Renaissance Club, North Berwick, Scotland. I know that it's not necessarily a pure link seed course to a lot of people by the definition of, but I still love the look of it. I love you see it on TV. I don't know. It's just great viewing in the morning come stateside.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you've always got these traditionalists that hasten to call links, right? And if it's anything they can say is not links about it, they won't. But really and truly, it's a good test. Maybe not the best preparation for the Open Championship in terms of cruise Scottish Open we've seen, but I like it being where it is on the schedule. It's certainly nearest to the test we're going to see next week, opposed to the Irish Open we saw last week on the Parkland test. And we've already seen it in two editions that the weather really does play a difference. We saw 19 under win it, or was it 20 under win it back in the first renewal, and it was nearer to 10 under last year. So definitely can be conditions that play a role this week.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it was vastly different. So I'm curious, and we have, I don't know, this is one of the better Euro fields that I can ever remember over here. I mean, there are so many guys from the top 60 that typically play, spend a lot of time on the PGA Tour side. So I'm looking forward to that. They're coming over here. It's par 71 course, roughly 7,300 yards, 7,293 on the site. Par 71, however, it still does have the 4 par 5s and it has 5 par 3s, which is a little different. I tried to go through the scoring, but like you said, with the 2 years they played at this course, the weather was kind of different on both. That Thursday of last year was wild. So I don't know if there's a ton to really take from looking at some of the statistics from the last 2 years. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I sort of messaged you earlier and said I couldn't really nail down any one statistic that really suited me. And I think you just kind of go back to hoping that strokes gained approach serves you well. And, generally speaking, the guys that hit the ball well, you can rely on. I mean, if you look back at last year, Fleetwood and Ride never really threatened at the top of the strokes gained approach market, and both of them were kind of quite tidy around the greens. But interesting thing was they both played pretty poorly in terms of strokes gained putting, but when you look at 3-putt avoidance, they were both right up there. And I think the top 9 on the leaderboard all ranked between 6th and 9th in 3-putt avoidance as well. So I think although you don't have to gain a ton of strokes with the putter, which will help a lot of the ball strikers we were going to talk about, I think it's important to avoid those 3 putts here. So like you say, I think it's really, really hard to get a grasp of exactly what it is that we need to do here. But I think generally speaking, if the calm conditions come in as we expect, then strokes gained approach is where we're going to be looking.
Right. Yeah. When in doubt, I kind of just lean on the obvious stuff of the ball striking. And I have a model where I more or less just try to pick out a golfer's underlying skill or talent, I'll say, kind of like a current performance rating. So I'll probably just rely heavy on that. Plus, when you see these deeper fields, guys come over who are normally on the PGA Tour, you typically see a lot of them float towards the top. And it's kind of sticking with that a little bit with my card anyway this week. I don't want to get too cute, as tempting as it will be. And obviously we'll talk about some of those guys who probably won't be able to hold off on all of them. But I mentioned the field. You look at the top of the board here and you have Jon Rahm coming in at the top at 7-1, followed by Xander 14, Colin Morikawa 16, Rory 18, and those are the guys I see below 20 on 365, and Justin Thomas rounding out 20, which just seems a little wild. We were talking about that just before we got on air here. So Does anybody tempt you in this, or does anything stand out to you from these the favorites here this week?
I mean, I think the only person I'd really draw a line through is Rory. I think that's just very much what I do quite often, which doesn't, it isn't something I should do for someone that's so highly talented, but I'm normally quite bullish on that. Justin Thomas seems a big price at 20-1 in a non-major. He's had his troubles, hasn't he, off and on and off this season. But that resounding victory at the Players' Championship, and I think he was ninth here on his debut. So Scottish Open, I think we know he can play well in an Open Championship. Hasn't quite contended there, but I think as we've just said, the best players will come to the fore here, especially if the calmer conditions there. They should put some friendly pins in before the weekend, try and keep some of these guys in the field over the weekend there. So Justin Thomas for me was the most tempting, but I think we both want to talk about the next guy on the board.
Yeah, so that'll be Terrell Hatton at 22-1. And the first thing that stands out, obviously, when I think of Hatton is his play over here in this general area. The links golf, specifically up here at some of these events, just seems to show up. And, he's got a victory in the area. He has top 10s, top 50. Like he should be in the mix, I believe. Last time we saw him, I believe, U.S. Open, missing the cut. He did finish second at the Palmetto Championship. I don't know. I bet Hatton a lot. I'm typically ahead of the market on him, for better or worse. That doesn't always equate to victories, but he's a pretty consistent performer, especially in the ball striking. Obviously, beat it to death, but he has touch around the green as well. When you get over in this part of the world, the fairways and around the green areas are quite rolling, hilly, slopey. I like to look at that touch. We know he can putt when he needs to. I made him slightly lower than 22-1, so I was happy to grab that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been absolutely outstanding in Scotland. He's got he's had 2 wins at the Alfred Dunhill Links. He should have had a third. But kind of threw it away, much to my pleasure that week. But he's got a previous second place finish in this event back on another course. He was 14th here on his debut. So it really does just depend on what turns up, right? We know now that not only is he an extremely talented player and winner on the European Tour, but he's now taken that over to the PGA Tour, and he's kind of up and down in major championships at the moment, and I think that's where his focus really is. And I think he'll really fancy the Open Championship next week at Royal St George's. So this is perfect preparation for him. And the only hesitation I had on going in with him, picking him, was I kind of like the look of Tommy Fleetwood as well. And the trouble I've got with Fleetwood at the moment is it really has been a struggle for him in terms of off the tee and approach. His long game that served him so well for it feels like years has really kind of deserted him over the last, pretty much since the COVID started. He's had flashes, but it's not been long-term form. And I think he is one of the guys, I think we've had him, we've had people like Adam Scott, we've had really high-profile players really struggled to get out of this sort of funk that the COVID has caused. So the reason I was kind of really torn between the two is he's kind of 30-1 and 33-1. You look at his last 4 finishes in Scotland, he's got a second, a fifth, a second, and then a 12th at the British Open. So, he really just comes to the fore. He lost in that playoff to Aaron Wright here last year. Again, should have won it. So, I wonder what price it would have been if he was coming in as the reigning champion despite the loss of form. So I think I will take Tommy Fleetwood, and I think I will roll with him just because of those extra sort of 10 points on him. But it's it's a tough decision between the two for me.
Yeah, that stings still last year from Tommy. He's somebody too. I bet a lot. I love him, even just a fan in general. But like you said, something's just not right. The irons aren't, I don't want to say they're trash. I mean, but they're not. Yeah, they're not what he rode to the top of the world rankings over the last few years here. So hopefully he can maybe he'll be a little more comfortable back home with everything going on still, around the world, COVID, family, whatnot. Who knows what's going on? It's just another layer we are trying to guess here. So,
and that's the thing, isn't it? Is you can't predict that. You can't second guess the mental approach. The one thing I did quite like is that this is something he's kept off his schedule prior to the Open Championship week for the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And he's added it back in. I don't know if it's because there's so many points up for grab because of the strength of the field. But you know, he had round three last week. He gained over 2 strokes in approach. So there is kind of hope for him in there. He was 29th in strokes gained approach. Like you say, it's not you're so used to seeing somebody Fleetwood in the top 5, top 10 of tee to green and approach all the time, and that really is what powered him. You know, we know he's not a great putter, but when he steps off the tee, you tend to think it's going to go long and straight, and that hasn't been the case. So it is pretty much a location play. I mean, if it was anywhere else, I kind of would have left him alone. There was no interest in him last week at such a shorter price. I'm just going to see if he can do it in Scotland, because he's not a guy I normally bet. I normally think he's probably too short in the market. I like to oppose him, but I'm going to give him a go this time.
Totally agree with you. It is very tempting for me, but I did jump on the next guy in line, which would be Scotty Scheffler, 33-1. Now, obviously, the concern is I don't know if Scheffler's ever seen a bit of true links golf in his life. I don't know if he's ever left the United States, for all I know. I could have maybe searched that, but I'm just going to assume that talent travels here. And he has been, I mean, we already knew he was talented, but of late, he's been playing very well, rates out very well for me, recent form. I mean, off the tee and approach, I normally don't really feel like I have to worry about him. He's been very, very consistent there. Like he's shown that he has touch around the green. You mentioned perhaps the windy Texas, who knows? I don't know. That could play into some of the comfortability. Maybe he won't feel that foreign. Like you said, it's not a pure links course. So I don't know. I'm banking on that number just being a little too big for me for the talent and form I see in Scheffler.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's exactly what I said to you, is that we really don't know. We've seen Jordan Spieth, who we grew up playing golf with, just absolutely say to open conditions. Obviously won there in Birkdale, played well in these sort of events. We know we've seen Matt Kuchar come over and play very, very well. You know, these are not guys that are Spieth in terms of record and things like that, but we expect Scheffler to be able to catch up with him and contend in major championships in the future. And if you do believe in that, then like you say, the price is too big. And there's another guy there, Will Zalatoris, behind him. That, you know, they all kind of grew up together, playing together. I don't think the high winds that you get in Texas are quite the winds that you get in the Scottish Open, but I don't think we're going to get them this week either. So if it's point and shoot and there's flags to take on, then why not take one of the best players in the world at the moment? And it would be, I don't know if it'd be ironic, but it'd be kind of interesting to see him get a European Tour victory before he gets a PGA Tour victory, and maybe that just kind of boosts him on, doesn't it?
Yeah, that'd be similar to Torres struggling to get into FedEx Cup playoffs. Maybe you can snag a win and just become a member on the Euro Tour instead, right?
Yeah, you can just completely dominate over here.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like you said, I just think that there's a lot to like, and I know you like someone. I mean, we just peppered this section of the board, man. Like I know you like the next guy in line. That'd be Mr. Bernd Wiesberger.
Yeah, I mean, look, he won here in 2019. I'm expecting the test to be a lot similar to that than it was last year. Hopefully that is the case. If it's not, then I wouldn't be quite so interested. I'm not sure if toughing it out is potentially his thing. But he's also a winner of the Irish Open. He's lost there in a playoff. He's also lost in a playoff at Johnny Walker Championship at Glen Eagles. So he's really got some really good bank of form. Although he's never played quite well in an Open Championship, he tends to play okay in this and these types of tests. First and third in 2 of his last 4 starts in tee to green. Second, third, and 14th in approach. He's hitting the ball incredibly well. He's got that Ryder Cup place to play for. You know, everyone wants to, it's very cliche to say everyone wants to get a good week ahead of the Open Championship, because of course they do. They can do that in the John Deere Classic if they really want to. But I really do think it's, you know, he's already proven he's won here once. He's played well in Scotland in the past, played well in Ireland. So in terms of British form, he's really, really good. And I really give him a chance again at 40-1.
He was very tempting. You look at that iron game, and yeah, like his last 4 tournaments. So dating back to the Maiden Himmerland. I mean, geez, it was really hard to ignore. Like I said, I just preferred Scheffler and Hatton in this area. And I made his number pretty close to what the market has. But good news for you, Bernd, when he's on fire, seems to be a real thorn in my side. I don't often I zig and zag when I'm on or off or fading against him in matchups. So it could be a good week for everybody else
I
to
just I
to
just
hop
think that
on.
for him is that, and I say this to Sky all the time when we're on here, is that he's a guy that next time he plays, the next field he plays in the European Tour, he's going to be 12 to 1, 14 to 1, whatever.
Yeah,
I'd like to take a chance on him at 40 to 1 because I know he can mix it with these guys. I know that despite the fact that you're expecting a Justin Thomas, Tyrrell Hatton, Xander Schauffele, John Rahm to take up a large part of the leaderboard. But Petersberger can play in those conditions. He's not afraid to win. We know how many times he's won on the European Tour. We know with those playoff losses, he's lost 3 times in playoffs. So he could conceivably be, nearly 10 wins on the European Tour. It's pretty impressive. So, and like you say, he's never going to have a better chance, I don't think, to get that Ryder Cup team. I don't, I still think it's going to be tough for him to make. There's so many good players there. But, if he does it here, it's going to be hard to deny.
yeah, it's going to be really hard for him to make that team when Guido comes and steals that spot from him. So I'll use that to segue in. I know Sky is not here, however, my fandom is just the same. I mean, I love this kid. And now he's on a streak of form that we have not seen from him really, dating back to his first two victories. He had a little tease there, and although he has not won over this recent stretch with the seconds, the fourth place to the U.S. Open, and flirted with the top 10 at the Travelers. I'm curious to see what he does this week. Again, it's another deep field. I just like him being in these fields. I like to see his statistics and how he's stacking up against these deeper fields since he's been such an up and down player throughout his career. I mean, 2020 was just horrible for him. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was not feeling the schedule, the travel. I know he makes his home in Dubai now, it seems, with Paratore. So I did jump back on him though this week. I see it's at 55 to 1. I think you can maybe hunt for some 60s out there, but I'm just going to ride the wave. I'm going to ride the irons, and he's not horrible around the green. He's typically not great on the, but even that has shaped up a little bit, it seems. Recent form putting is not something I would normally tout too much, though. Long term, it's normally pretty ugly. So that said, I couldn't not bet him here, especially filling in for Sky. So
Look, we spoke about it on Lucas Herbert, obviously won last week. How highly do you rank the PGA Tour form versus, regular European Tour events? He had those 2 second place finishes, should have won the British Masters. I know everyone loves Richard Bland and everything that happened there, but that was his tournament to lose, even when it got to the playoff, which he maybe shouldn't have done, that 8-iron, into the green should have been a whole lot better as well. So,
yep.
he had the chance to win there. Then he goes and finishes second at Himland, fourth at the US Open, which is just an incredible result. I mean, we've been talking about every week on here, and even we probably didn't think he could actually go and finish fourth in that event.
No.
And then tied 13th at the Travellers. We've just seen Lucas Herbert take his form from that event over into a victory over here. And again, like you say, it's a case of seeing what he can do now, because we've seen that he's finished fourth in the US Open. Well, that's all the guys that are in this field were in that field. So there's no reason he can't do it. It's whether he can get over the line, because you're starting to get to a price with Migliozzi where you do need the victory
Yes.
as opposed to place value. But again, like I just touched upon with the former picks, is that he's not going to be 55 to 1 in the next field he plays in the European Tour. He's going to be 16 and 18 to 1. So grab it while you can, give it a go. Hope he finally gets over the line. And again, as just mentioned that player, we can segue into him now, is Lucas Herbert. And I was quite surprised at the price, I think, because I know a lot of people, golf's a funny sport, right? It seems to be the one that if you win, everyone seems to think you can't do it again the next week.
Yep.
I think in the COVID times, I think it's been a lot easier to string results together. I don't know if that's the case, but I think just going from the fans that you would have on a regular week to when you've just won, that can sometimes play on. There's a lot more media contributions. I don't know. There's something to it, I think, but he was really, really good down the stretch after a real wobble in the first sort of front nine. He was sort of spraying the ball everywhere, but he really settled down, held off the competition. So he won the Irish Open last week, seventh previously at Dunhill Links, fourth here last year, and that's despite a third round 79 that dropped him into 22nd. So it's pretty impressive to get himself back up into fourth. Even when he was 62nd on debut, he was 20th after 36 holes, opened with 67, 66. So I really do think he's going to like this test. loves the UK and Ireland as well. Tied third finish at British Masters, further evidence of that. All of his, I think a quarter of his finishes in the top 20 OWGR finishes have been in the UK and Ireland. So he really just loves playing around here. And he backs up, he can string form together. I mean, I just made some notes here, and it's crazy that he finished fourth here after finishing seventh at the Irish Open, backs up his Dubai win with finishes at 27th, 12th, 58th, second. Back at the British Masters in 2018, he went from 28th, second, 7th, third. Following on from Dunhill to the British. So he does string it together, and he just seems to feel at home. I think Australia, you can see a lot of sort of conditions like this. Again, I think it's going to be calmer. I think 50-1 on a guy that's just won. Again, I know it's a much deeper field, but he's gone up in price after a victory, and I'm quite happy to give him another chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like, backing a guy off a win, it's more of a mental hurdle because I'll run the numbers, and if the numbers tell me to bet him, I'll bet him. And coming in, I expected him to be a lot lower too. I made him slightly lower. I wasn't on last week, so I assumed I would not be on this week, although you brought up great points of why it is potentially intriguing. However, I was sucked into another guy in this range, Ian Poulter. Also, you can find shopping around from 55 to 60 in that range. And this is probably the first guy on my card who truly, I don't know if scare is the right word, but it's it's reaching. I'm betting on a skill set that is introduces more variance on the short game with the putting and the around the green. He's been exceptional there most of this year, a lot of his career. The irons are a slight worry, although they're not atrocious. They're just plain average, slightly below. He really hasn't had a ton of great finishes this year. Charles Schwab was a T3. The rest are very middling, 20ths, 30ths, So to take this number, I did make him slightly lower. Again, I think that's just the top end of this field is outstanding. The bottom end is a little weaker, obviously, than a typical PGA field, which, he's playing a lot. So that gives him a little boost in the simulations. I think there's less people he has to contend with, although the top is just as heavier than a lot of PGA that we see of recent. So this, I don't know, it's a little bit more of a reach for me on a guy who has had obviously middling success in these type of events. However, I'm going to trust the number. He hasn't been bad. It's just I'm leaning a lot on him, hopefully just staying out of trouble, stay out of trouble with the ball striking, and I think he can get in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with Poulter, I kind of think that he would have benefited from it being similar to last year's conditions as opposed to this. And that can still happen, right? I mean, I'm trying to predict weather that happens in Scotland on a links course, 5 days out. It can be completely wrong, and it could blow my selections out the window, and then you'd be very, very comfortable with the Poulter pick. 14th and 6th on this golf course. He's got 2 other top 10s in this event, in recent times. I think there's plenty to like. Like we say, I think it really does. You really do have to put the form on the PGA Tour into context versus European Tour. If Ian Poulter was full-time European Tour, he'd have more victories. I know it's a skill set that does does revolve around the short game, but also when he's on, his irons are brilliant. He's a really good ball striker, and it's underrated. Maybe not the best off the tee because he's not the longest, and that part of his game suffers, and that's why he does have to be so sharp with that short game. And everyone just thinks of Ian Poulter at the Ryder Cup and getting up and down in the biggest moments and beating his chest, but there's more to him than that, and his irons are really, really good to watch, and he's played really well in Open Championships, played really well in majors in general. So I think Ian Poulter's a player that gets overlooked because he's slightly older now, probably a bit more of a practical joker, a bit more of a just enjoys the finer things in life. But when he comes back here, he does get the jobs done, and I really like him.
Yeah, I show my age a little bit, but when I think of Ian Poulter, I think of the chest pumping and screaming from the Shell Houston Open victory. But also helps that I was on him for that. So
as long as he doesn't wear those hideous gold outfits he used to wear when he was trying to say it's him and Tiger and nobody else in the world, then I think we could. That's the flashback Poulter we probably don't need to see.
Yeah, the hot or light pink outfits and
Yes.
spiked hair, and yeah, he was
I
a
think he
wild
wants to
child
wear an
back.
Arsenal shirt back in the day
Yeah.
as well. So he's not the typical golfer, is he?
No, but so I think that does it kind of for us in the this middle range.
Yeah.
I think now we can get to some of these deeper guys. Now, I haven't necessarily fired on any of these guys in particular, but I believe we are both debating Jason Scribner. If you want to jump into him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only doubt I have on Jason Scrivener is kind of what I flagged up to you earlier is that his form in Scotland and his form in these types of events aren't really there yet. He's missed a lot of cuts. He's had some really middling finish. I think his best is probably a 24th at Dunhill Links, which is a pretty good result. But the thing for me that kind of sways me back into him, alongside the strokes gain approach numbers and tee green that he's currently pedaling out, is that he's never really been in that great a form coming into this event. This is a completely different Jason Scrivener now to what we've seen in past renewals of this. He's finished ninth, sixth, and third in three of his last four starts. He was 23rd at the PGA Championship. He was second to Cyril Hatton, obviously, back at the Abu Dhabi Championship earlier in the year. And he played really well. Although he finished fairly shy of Cyril Hatton in terms of score, he played really, really well on that Sunday and was probably one of the only people that took a step forward towards Hatton. So, he's like we say, he's been first in tee green and second in approach last week, third in approach two starts ago. He's got it on a string. It's just, again, I think he's the one that's going to benefit from it being the 2019 renewal versus the 2020, and hopefully we get that.
Yeah, I mean, he's having a career year so far in 2021, and he found something last year, changing and improving his off the tee, and obviously the putting had been really bad, and that has seemed to be, I don't know if he changed a grip, putter, coach, whatever have you. This entire year has been relatively solid in that aspect. His iron game, which had been really strong, has kind of suffered, but coming back, and obviously the ninth, seventh, 55th, third, that type of form you mentioned coming into an event where he's typically struggled. He's never shown this type of upside or talent in his career really for a year-long stretch. So I think that's another thing to get excited about when you can find him poking around at about 100 to 1. Who else would you like to talk about in some of these deeper ranges? Maybe not fired quite yet, but tempting.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a trio of names. I've got one last pick that I'll go into first before we go into those, and it's Adrian Atwegi. He'd gone into a slightly shorter price last week, and you expected that because of the way he's been playing. And like I keep repeating myself, I do try and play these guys when they just go in slightly longer odds in better fields because, especially over here in the UK, we get 8 places each way. It's 5 places over there most of the time, but he's been a winner in Scotland in lower grade events, the Scottish Championship and the match play. Tied 12th last week, extends his run of form, 12th, 29th, second, no miscuts in the last 8. He's had 2 seconds in China and Austria, which again, not really any relevance to this, but it could conceivably be a 4-time winner, as both of those were just by a single stroke. Also got that second for Andy Sullivan last year, albeit further back. But he's ranked second, sixth, and first in tee green in the last 3, 11th, 9th, and first in approach. When he was 20th here on debut, he was 6th after 36 holes and 5th after 54, but just had a really bad Sunday. He was 5 strokes shy of Wiesberger going to Sunday, so you can just tell that he just probably got a little bit aggressive, probably just tried to go for it too early on, and maybe just unravelled. I think that's something that can really happen on these golf courses. And it just shows where he was through 3 rounds, just what type of player he is.
Yeah, I'm actually very tempted still to search out for an each way for Otagi. As you mentioned, the ball striking just been unreal his last 3 events. Just about 2 strokes in Ireland, 1.3 at the BMW, very close to 3 in Scandinavia. And his 2 events before that were still above 0, close to half a stroke. So that's hard to ignore for me, especially again in this field. Do I expect him to win? No, but at that number, I can definitely search for a place. And then the other Spaniard in this area, I know you're a little keen on, which would be Adri Arnaus, 160.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. I mean, he's a guy that he he was very, very popular throughout last year and the start of this year because he's a guy that he's got that prototypical modern game where he can hit it long and typically straight at times. I think it's a bit hidden what he done here. He's 26th on his debut and he was 6th after 54 holes. And although he didn't end up playing very well in the end over the weekend last week, he was 4th after round 1 and 9th after round 2. Ranked first in strokes gained putting last week. Again, we don't want to rely on that, but it's a good sign going into the Scottish Open. So, it's not someone I'd typically go for because, again, like I say, he's always just too short in the market for me. He's always 33, 40s one, 50s one. He kind of gets up to, and it gets to a number where you think, okay, he's got a chance of doing something. And again, that comes with playing against better opposition. But someone to keep an eye on, and certainly from a DraftKings perspective, if you were looking into that, I think he could be a good play for that.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, there's only really one more guy for me that is even somewhat, again, tempting is loose, maybe a T20. But Maverick Antcliffe, you can find him to win around 250 to 1. Again, haven't pulled the trigger yet, but he's one of those guys you look at and he's just great with irons. Like he has one skill, he's very good at it, and he's not very good at anything else, which is why you're getting him at 250 to 1. But man, even in the weighted scheme of things that I do worldwide, Euro versus PGA, like his iron play has just been outstanding. So even when weighted for some of these fields that he's playing in, which is why he sticks out so much to me, he can find off the tee okay. It's really obviously, as it is with most of these guys, it's kind of Guido-esque when we stumbled into him years ago. Like the iron play and even off the tee is good. Like it's just, I don't know. Maybe he'll put it together. Who knows? But at 250 to 1, you might be able to find a good place number out there for Maverick Antcliffe.
Yeah, he's a guy, isn't he? A bit like Sean Crocker, who played well last week.
Good comp too, yeah.
You see these guys that can, they just have an even week with the putting or gain strokes by some minor miracle, that they can really contend. And again, you don't expect them to win, but the numbers that they're going to be at, you don't need them to. And, top 20 bets, top 10 bets on a guy that, is just going to flush his irons all day long. I don't even think it really matters what conditions he does it in. I think actually that helps. If it gets in really bad conditions, I think the fact that he's got complete confidence in that swing. You find some guys that are really trying to spear it, and then they've got the wind to contend with, and you think, oh God, what are you going to do? But Maverick Antcliffe, he knows he's going to do it. He's got one of the best names in golf, so over with Maverick Manili over on the PGA Tour as well. I think that is certainly one to look at. Just a last trio of names here. Benjamin Hebert was a playoff loser in 2019 and 19th last year in different conditions, and he was 10th after 54 holes. And one of the things I do really like to look at is you can see it on the results page on the European Tour and other avenues as well. It's just going by that position by position, because we might see guys like announced last week that finished 53rd in the field, and you think, okay, they were terrible, and then you actually break it down. Actually, they were in really good contention for 2 days, and maybe they can just piece it together next week as the platform. So that's something that he could do. He was 16th in approaches last week, so that's something to consider. And I think he's available at kind of 300 to 1, and he's literally come second in this event. So I think that playoff was one of the longest in history on the European Tour. So it's close. Matthew Southgate, big odds for a links specialist. He was 9th here on his start. So again, not someone that I think has got a huge lot of win equity, but someone that's probably someone to keep an eye on. And Matthew Jordan, he's played really, really well in the Dunhill Links, 32nd and 5th, 25th at the Scottish Championship. He's finally found some form again. He's someone that everyone kept an eye on last year because he came out and played really well, really quickly. But last two, he's been 17th and 12th, 16th and 17th from tee to green. But the approaches haven't been quite what you'd want them to be to really get too confident about him. But he's getting there, and I think that maybe this week comes too early, and certainly in the field strength, but maybe someone's keeping on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Jordan's somebody I bet quite a bit in the day, and unfortunately bet quite a bit through his withdrawing and all these cuts that he has recently been missing. So you can maybe twist my arm into hopping back onto that. The off the tee has come back a little bit, so that's promising to the irons next, hopefully. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think really and truly now is that I could probably give another 5 or 6 names that you could throw in there, and we typically do, don't we? And I think, you see guys down here, especially in a field like this, because the numbers are so big, you get sucked in, and it's probably not wise, right? We're talking about the strongest, like you said, the strongest European Tour event in probably in history, but certainly for as long
Right.
as we can certainly remember. Maybe back when Tiger used to come over, that might have changed. But it's just crazy. I think people like Callum Shinkwin has got some good form in these sort of events, and he's 400 or 500 to 1. Lane Gaskell, someone I put up before, who I don't know what's really going on with him. Wade Ormsby's played well in this event, 300 to 1. Xander Lombard's played well in Irish Opens. There's so many names, but there's a reason they're down here, and there's a reason there's guys at the top of the market that we have already covered.
Yep, I'm with you there. So unless you have anybody else, that will pretty much be my card. I'll run back through it really quick. That's going to be Hatton at 20-22, Scotty Scheffler 33, Ian Poulter at 60, Guido Migliozzi at 60, and then Scrivener, Otegi, and Antcliffe are the tempting deeper odd guys for me this week.
Yeah, and I've gone with Fleetwood over Hatton for my sins, and hopefully that pays off. Bernd Wiesberger there at 40 to 1, Lucas Herbert at 50 to 1 to carry on the good form. Again with you, Jason Scrivener is someone I've considered, but I'm really sweet on Adrian Otegi at 140. And then there's just that kind of trio or quadruple of guys of Adrian House, Benjamin Hebert, Matthew Southgate, Matthew Jordan, who are guys that just look at for long shots, look at for DraftKings, because that's a big tournament in that this week. And just look for some of those to fill your cards.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, it was great joining you. I'm glad I could fill in for Sky while he's on vacation. If you're looking for the audio version of this, feel free to search Daily Fantasy Sports The Mix wherever you listen to your podcast, and subscribe. It does Skylar and Tom a great benefit, as well as the Mayo Media Network that is hosting this. Once again, thank you for letting me join, and good luck everybody this weekend.
Bryan, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate your stepping in and doing a great job. So thank you.
Anytime.